What's up, fellow humans? My name is Tannic and welcome back to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. It's nice to be back. Just look at this and listen to it as well. This game has such beautiful environments and such an amazing atmosphere. But don't look at the environments too closely yet, because we're gonna do plenty of that in this video. Since in this video we are going to further this DLC mission here, EX the Champion's Ballad. I've put an extra marker over there just to make sure that I don't accidentally go to that one, since I have a route planned for that one, because we're not just gonna teleport straight to it from, like, I don't know, there, but instead we are going to go to my travel medallion over here, and from this travel medallion we will then travel over to here, glide rather, get Epona, and then with Epona we're gonna ride a bit into the Koalas Forest, and then afterwards we're gonna ride all the way over here into Azureus Domain, or somewhere in this region, and from there, probably just to there, and from there we're gonna go up to that one, to the objective. Because this episode we will look at some more plants in video games, this time in Breath of the Wild. However, unlike in the Subnautica video, this time around we're not just gonna take a look at individual plants in the game, speaking of looking at, but we're also gonna take a look at the botany in relation to the game's geography, which luckily is made a lot easier in this game through the fact that we can just glide all over the place and have a bird's eye view of these beautiful landscapes. So what I mean by that is that, for example, if a certain type of forest, like a deciduous forest, makes sense to grow in an area of the game when you take in consideration that area's geographical aspects. Alright, so with a little rest to restore our health and Epona on our side, let's get going into the Koalas Forest, shall we? And let's see what we can find there. Also, yes, I'm going with the trends. I changed my outfit. The trends change very fast in this world. So a thing about Breath of the Wild is that you can actually cook dishes to regenerate your health and give yourself various buffs. And a lot of those ingredients for those dishes are actually plants. And therefore, there are a bunch of plants scattered throughout the world that you can collect and that you can get entries for as well in your... Where was it? In your album? No, Hyrule Compendium. There, this thing. Then if we go over to materials here, it's kind of racist to call plants materials, but okay. You can actually not just search for them like I have here with the big hearty radish, because that is a very useful thing to find. Which means you can you get a signal if one is nearby, and the signal gets stronger if you go into the right direction. But you also have little entries for them. The sad part about that is that doesn't really make my job any easier, because they are usually just about taste or something like that. A rare radish that grows best in sunny plains. Okay, never mind, I'll eat my words. Cook it before eating to temporarily increase your maximum hearts. At least this one gives you a little bit of information. A rare radish that grows best in sunny plains. That's interesting. Does that make sense? Yeah, sure, yeah. Why not, yeah? I find nothing that would make sense in that, so... I don't know where radishes actually grow in real life. Actually, hang on, let me look that up. Alright, so quote, radishes are a fast-growing annual cool season crop. Of course, in Breath of the Wild you have all the herbs, all the flowers, all the vegetables, all year round. They don't change, that's fine. Breath of the Wild doesn't have seasons. It's a video game, it has gameplay which is not focused around that kind of stuff, so we're just gonna ignore that. But also, quote, radishes grow best in full sun, in light, sandy loams, with a soil pH... Yeah, okay, that isn't really important for this. So that is interesting, in full sun. So that actually makes sense. So, okay, hats off to you for that one already, Breath of the Wild. Anyhow, we're not just gonna look through this the whole time, since, as I already mentioned, most of these usually just give us information that we already know, and then talk about their taste or what they do when you cook them, because that's the gameplay aspect. So it doesn't really help us that much anyway. We're gonna actually have to pay more attention to where we see them growing. Like here, which is actually a good example for something that I want to talk about in this episode. But I want to talk about that in a bit more detail than just me rambling about it. This one over here, blue nightshade. Well, listen, hear me out. I have something very interesting to tell you about that one. I don't know. I suppose, well, there's shade in its name and it's in the shade, so I think we're just gonna leave it at that and move on. One thing I want to address is that this forest we are currently in is exclusively a deciduous forest. No okay, there are evergreen trees, but they are actually after this deciduous forest, so that's interesting. Yeah, pine trees are actually adapted to environments where they have a lot of water around them, because usually they grow in very cold areas where there's a lot of rain and snow, and especially the snow creates a lot of water that is constantly supplying the pine trees. So they are usually growing in areas that are colder and that are more wet than other deciduous trees here. Oh jeez. Okay, hang on there, Epona. Don't freak out. So we're not gonna wander through the whole Koalas forest because it's kind of difficult. You have to follow the sparks of the little torches here, or what do you want to call them? The fire. But I do want to look a little bit inside of here, and then we're just gonna warp into the middle via fast travel. So just in this area we have a lot of trees that are definitely pretty much dead, not completely. But pretty much. Actually, are they completely dead? Because I suppose that's just moss. Moss hanging down from it. You have a lot of mist here as well. So it definitely makes sense that there's a lot of moss here. Because the mist, of course, makes the humidity in the air extremely high, which moss very much likes. And I suppose it makes even more sense for the moss to be here if you take into consideration that something has to have eradicated this whole forest. That may have been connected to the Calamity Ganon, maybe setting this forest on fire, and therefore some trees that are resistant to it, which is something that actually exists in real life, growing leaves again now, but the other trees that are not resistant to the fire just stay dead. Although I do have to say, I do not think these trees really look like trees that are resistant to fire, but I suppose they could be, I don't know. So what I wanted to lead up to with that is that if this whole part of the forest with all the plants in it had indeed been burnt down by the Calamity Ganon, then that would mean this area had become an area prone for new colonization. And such areas are usually colonized first by colonization species. Well, duh. And wouldn't you know it, a colonization species that is very effective in doing that is moss. Pretty much every type of moss, actually. Moss is just, in general, very good for that kind of stuff. So, with all this mist especially, that makes a lot of sense, actually. And maybe all these kind of flakes in the air might be spores as well from the moss and maybe some fern too. Actually, that might be interesting. Fern is also a plant that very much loves moist environments. But I haven't seen moss. I haven't seen fern in this area here yet. But we do see these. Actually, hang on. How do we? There we go. These do not look like a plant that is usually in moist habitats. So maybe that actually confirms our hypothesis that this used to be a whole different environment, and which had then been burnt down and now newly been colonized. But that still wouldn't explain why these are still able to grow here that healthy as well. So, I don't know. Does that make sense? I mean, this area is kind of magical, so I suppose if any area doesn't make sense in this game, this area would probably be it. So maybe it's not the best area to try to analyze, but I'm gonna try it anyway, because this area is interesting. And maybe it does actually make sense. Yeah, I'm not so sure about these ones, but the moss actually does make sense with the dead trees. That could very much tell an interesting story. I don't know if that is actually a thing in the lore of Breath of the Wild that happened, if the Korok forest got burnt down. I'm not sure. It might actually be. So, the first thing I want to address is that, of course, the Deco Tree is totally real and totally normal. Okay, no. Oh, okay. Frame rate, are you okay? Ooh, yeah. The Silent Princesses. Let's look at them a little closer. Zoom. Ah. Interesting. Do they have leaves at the bottom? They do. Oh, that's a nice detail. Oh, that's also kind of interesting. How the stem kind of gets thicker where the leaves sprout out of it. That's a nice attention to detail. There you have the unblossomed flower. And up here, of course, you have the beautiful flower in its full glory, with pollen scattering out of it. Interesting. So you have, of course, the... Okay, focus, maybe? Damn it, Breath of the Wild. You have, of course, the anthers off to the sides of it. And then in the middle, the stigma. So anthers, of course, being the male parts of the flower, and the stigma the female, which receives the pollen. The anthers scattering the pollen. So these white flakes, actually, let's see if we can, let's see if they paid attention to that. Do these white flakes actually, no, okay, that just randomly appear in front of the flower. Would be cool if they actually made it so that they scatter off of the anthers. Ah, oops, okay. The form of the stigma and anthers actually makes sense, so that's cool. Nice attention to detail. Not too extreme, but it's nice. It's definitely more than they would have had to. Now, before we continue on our journey through the lands of Hyrule, let's take a closer look at our surroundings, shall we? Let's start off with a bird's eye view of the botany in relation to the geography, and then slowly glide down to the ground. For the analysis of this episode, we're just gonna focus on this specific area here, since it immediately grabbed my attention when I got back into this game. The first thing that grabbed my attention is that there seems to be a pattern of where the trees are growing. They seem to be growing wherever a flat surface is, or water can collect in other ways. And this observed pattern not only applies to the trees, it actually makes sense across this whole area's biodiversity. There seems to be a direct correlation between the supply of water in an area and the size of the plants that grow there. You have grass where the water is just flowing past and barely collecting, bushes where some water is collecting, and finally, a small forest where the most water is collecting. How did I draw that conclusion so fast, and how do I explain it? Well, let's follow the flow of the water. Now, how do we do that when Breath of the Wild doesn't actually show it? Well, we look for evidence in the geography. First off, we can see that the water, following gravity, quickly flows down the grassy hills, making those hills very smooth in the process. Or to be more specific, through erosion, where it drags the soil down with it. The hard rocks underneath and among the soil, however, partially withstand the erosion and break the otherwise smooth slopes of the grassy hills, as we can clearly see here. As the soil is being carried away and the hills reduced to an increasingly rocky surface, the hill's capacity of how much water they can absorb reduces as well, which in turn results in increased water runoff, which, of course, again increases erosion. The only species that is capable of surviving in those conditions, with few soil and a lack of constant water supply, is grass. The grass doesn't need much water or soil, can reproduce quickly and effectively, and, as they grow in numbers, can hold together the little remaining soil with their roots, finally reducing erosion. And they don't even stop there. As the old grass dies and is replaced by the new, the old grass decomposes and turns into soil, slowly building up the layer of soil again, securing the survival of the species. Further following the flow of the water, we can see that it is partially redirected by the rocks that we mentioned earlier. Here, the detail in Breath of the Wild's landscapes really blew me away, since, as you can see here, there are bushes growing in the area where the flow of the water would be redirected to through the shape of the rocks. They're struggling to survive there, half of the population even wilting because of the lack of soil, but surviving as a whole nonetheless because they have a better supply of water. But that's not the only result of these rock formations. Through the redirecting of the water, a lack of water is also created behind the rock, making it more difficult for even the grass to survive there. Furthermore, the rock formations also tend to have reduced amounts of soil that is able to collect around them, since there is more of that rock close to the surface in its immediate vicinity. Then, finally, we get to the last stage of the water flow. At the places where the water collects, which can be at low points in the geography caused through landslides, erosion, ground composition and so forth, the soil that is dragged with it collects there as well, and therefore both soil and water are more abundant and more consistent there. This makes for better conditions for bigger plants to start growing there. However, since the conditions there are a lot more favorable than in the surrounding area, the colonization of this area becomes a bit of a competition and race. The first to colonize are of course mosses, grass and other smaller plants, but later on bushes and then trees start to take over and drive away some of the smaller plants through the shade they cast and the extent of their roots. The area turns into a mixed forest with deciduous and evergreen trees sharing the sun, soil and water with a large variation of other species lower at the ground. This is what we can see in the game as well. However, things don't stay like that forever. Over time, the layer of soil builds up further through more organic litter and roots holding it together, and some species will prove to be better adapted to the local conditions than others and will take over and drive the others away. And we can even see exactly that happening in the game. The deciduous trees seem to be reproducing a lot more effectively, littering the ground with new still growing deciduous trees, while there is no evergreen offspring in sight anywhere anymore. The apple trees also seem to be at a disadvantage, only occasionally found amongst the taller trees that tower above them. So now that we've discussed the formation and future of the forests, and the individual plants involved in all that, what other factor could we have left out so far? Well, that would be fungi. Despite me theming my last video game plant analysis around something that turned out to probably be a fungus, fungi are not actually plants. However, a bunch of fungi sure love to make some shady deals with plants to get some of that sweet, sweet good stuff. They trade nutrients for sugar because they grow in the dark and don't photosynthesize. So I meant what I said literally. To expand that a bit, fungi actually don't have roots, but instead they have something called mycel. Mycel acts very similar to normal roots, but it spans a gigantic area of soil underground in a pattern most similar to plants with fibrous roots. Fungi actually live pretty much exclusively underground and almost completely consist of mycel, only visiting the surface to reproduce. Because they have such an abundance of nutrients but no sugar from photosynthesis, they often connect with the roots of trees to trade with them. Trees, of course, being their favorite because they usually produce the most sugar and are therefore more willing to trade. This codependence is represented very well in the game, and it especially makes a lot of sense in these areas that we discussed, where the layer of soil is still just building up again, and the trees therefore might struggle to obtain enough nutrients. The game clearly has mushrooms intentionally growing next to the roots of the trees, with some mushrooms, however, like the silent shroom and the zap shroom, also occurring elsewhere, suggesting they are not as dependent on the trade as the razor shroom and truffles, for example, which, from what I've seen, seem to pretty much exclusively appear next to trees. Alright, that's gonna do it for this analysis, so now let's get back to our journey. So here you have a beanstalk, bearing pretty gigantic beans. Is there anything you can specifically talk about with that one? That leaf is glitching into the stem. Damn it, Breath of the Wild, come on. Oh, you can actually see it go into the ground and loop back up around the rock. That's actually pretty cool. I never really paid that much attention to it, but that looks pretty sick. What are these ones? Oh, these are... Oh, cool. These are another type of fern, yeah. I saw a lot of those in Ireland. Ah, that's cool. They are just usually a bit tinier. they're not as big as normal ferns usually. What are these petals from? I suppose it makes sense for them to be around the beanstalks, because to bear the beans, the fruit, they would have had to have a flower earlier. So I suppose we can here see the petals of what would have been the flower of this beanstalk. These are very tiny petals for a giant plant like that. And a lot too. So it would have been like a gigantic bush of petals. Oh, that's actually pretty cool. I would have loved to see that. Oh, there are even more here. Oh, jeez. Or is there any Damn it. I would have loved to have a beanstalk with a gigantic bush of little petals. But okay, to be fair, that wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense from a botany standpoint, I think. All of these tiny petals would make for a greater mass and therefore more stuff that the plant would need to produce them, so therefore making it less efficient. What happened to the music? I think the music wants us to carry on our journey, because we still haven't even wandered any distance into the direction of our objective. So let's go back to Epona and carry on in the other direction. I love how this spawn always just positions the camera against that piece of hill over there in a way that Link just always stares into your soul whenever the loading screen is finished. And especially with Majora's Mask, that is just terrifying. But also with this Phantom Mask, which looks pretty sick, by the way. So, now we're gonna glide back over to Epona. Or actually, we're gonna glide over to the stable. I think that's faster. And then we're gonna carry on into that direction. We haven't battled even a single time in this episode either, so far. So, I'm curious if we're gonna find some enemies that we can fight along the way. Most probably, there are a bunch of enemies scattered all over the place in this game. Just not really in the Koalas Forest. So we chose pretty much the safest path there is so far. But that should be about to change. Especially if we're going towards a DLC objective, which also happens to be beyond the Azureus Domain. Ooh, there's a slime. Slime is not a worthy enemy for us though right now. I'm kind of looking for something more challenging. Alright, so let's take a look at a bit of the botany around here. So you have grass, you have a bush, and that's it. Moving on. Actually, that's actually a lie, because you do in fact have have little flowers that vanish if you zoom in. Damn it. And little other herbs. Oh, I never noticed these. Wait, hang on. I know these. We have those in our garden, or at least had those in our previous garden from our old house. Oh, and ooh, I know these as well. These are the flowers of clover. And I also tried to look up the name of these ones again, but I couldn't find it. So I probably have the wrong name in my memory, because my memory just is really bad. But I do in fact know these plants. These are actually very, very similar to the real ones. The real ones, most of them are probably a little bit darker, I suppose. And they usually don't have just one leaf, but two or more. Well, usually... Hang on, let me try to remember. Actually, that might be a lie. Actually, they might just have one leaf, because these leaves are actually pretty big for a plant like that. Hang on, let me just compare again. Yeah, in real life they're probably bigger. At least the ones we had in our garden were a good bit bigger than those. Probably more like the size of the hooves of Epona, I suppose. That should, yeah, that should be about right. These little flowers, these purple ones, and there are also other ones somewhere I saw. Oh, over there. Light blue and white ones. I don't know if you can say anything about those other than they are beautiful flowers. So we're just gonna leave it at that. Is that... Ooh. Hey, look at that. Ah, lily pads. Hey, that's cool. I suppose they just probably drifted over here through the water current, and that's why they are so close to the beach as a group. I think that, yeah, that could very much happen. So, interesting. Oh. There were actually some things to talk about. I just wanted to joke. I didn't think there was actually something to talk about in that part, because it was just so barren. But turns out I was wrong. It actually wasn't barren. Step right up and buy him. What? Well, what are you selling? Ah, okay. But I suppose this is gonna be our first fight then, eh? What happens if you say you buy them? Oh, you can actually buy them. Okay, I suppose. Let's buy 5 of them. Will he just leave us alone then? I'm actually curious. Or will he still attack us? Okay, he will still attack us. For the banana, I mean... whatever. I didn't read what he actually meant. Alright, so... Oh, okay. Hit him! Oh, damn it. That was pretty sick. Nope. And goodbye! Wait, what? Oh, okay. Seems like he's immune to that. Also, those are quite sick dashes, I gotta admit. Let's fight him with the Master Sword. Because as long as we still have full HP, we can actually send these blade swings at him. Magical blade swing projectiles! There we go. They don't do a whole lot of damage, but they are pretty useful. Because, of course, we don't waste any arrows or anything. Oh! That last one did a ton. Did I get a critical hit for aiming at his feet? Sweet. Demon Carver. Yeah, no, okay, we don't need that. Actually, now that I played Xevae Chronicles, these actually kind of look like Nia's weapons. Alright, so we are slowly entering Azureus Domain. Over there is the tower that marks the border. I hope we're gonna be let in. Okay, seems like we're gonna have to fight. Hang on. Let me just climb up a tree first, okay. Actually, can he cut down the tree? Oh, he can spit. Oh, I don't want that. Can I jump? Okay, like that. And there we go. And switch to... Yeah, let's keep the electric arrows because we have a lot of them. And electric is super effective against water. I don't think this game works that way. Actually, does it? Does it in some ways? I'm not sure. Alright, Epona, I think we're gonna have to move on without you. I'm sorry. Also, look at that. That's interesting. I mentioned that earlier. And here we can definitely see it in action. This area, of course, Azureus Domain, has a lot of rain and water flowing all over the place. So, of course, there are definitely, almost exclusively, evergreen trees. Oh gosh, okay. Scary. Oh god. Okay, I'm gonna take this path. Okay, stop. Let's break that. Ow, okay, I rocked straight into rock. And the tree fell on top of me. Ow. Okay, so I think we probably broke that one. Oh, those are a lot of pretty valuable items. Did we kill him with the tree? No, surely not. Because it seemed like stuff was floating down there from like over here. What killed him? Did the other guy accidentally snipe his friend? Huh. Oh, interesting. This shroom is not growing next to a tree, but actually next to a rock. And the bush. Huh. Again here next to the bush. Ah, interesting. Ooh, yay, we found a hearty truffle. So, most mushrooms in this game almost exclusively grow around, or even exclusively for some mushrooms, I'm not quite sure, around trees, right at their roots. And I'm now thinking the silent shroom might actually be an exception for that, because we've now seen it grow next to those bushes as well, which seem not to be little trees, but actually just a whole different species that just stays as a little shrub. It might actually be the case that some mushrooms actually trade nutrients for sugar with shrubs as well, with little bushes. And not just fully grown trees or rather mature trees. Okay, hang on. Oop, this is the one. Yeah, quick. Okay. Ow. Ooh, what? Okay, hang on. Throw. Okay. I just barely spaced that so I wouldn't get hit myself. That was actually kind of scary. We got a little bit lucky there. Ooh, is that an apple? Sweet. Apples are my life essence, man. Ah. An old phrase. Oh, actually we can see some more flowers over here in this tall grass. And some more other herbs as well. Also, these bushes here, they have a pink-purple color, which is very interesting. The only way I could explain that right now, from the stuff I already know, is that they actually use, instead of anthocyanins for UV protection, they use a different pigment, which is theorized to have been the pigment that had been used by plants instead of anthocyanins, by all plants actually, or pretty much all plants, many years ago, when the Earth was still pretty young. Yeah, and then later on, evolution, just and natural selection, just took their course and replaced that purple, pink, actually more purple, pigment with the more efficient red pigment anthocyanins for UV protection. But yeah, these bushes here in Azureus Domain might actually still use that old, less efficient pigment. I don't know why it's less efficient. Maybe in these conditions in Hyrule, or even specifically in Azureus Domain, actually make that pigment more efficient. But I think that would cause some more changes in the color just in general of all these plants. Well, I suppose the purple color would still just darken the more dominant green color. So it probably would turn out to be very similar, but I think there would be a slight difference. But I suppose you couldn't really make it out that much. What are these? Oh wait, these are also ferns. Yeah, I recognize these as well. Ah, a different kind of fern. So now we have already seen 3 types of fern. Oh yeah, these are the other type of fern. Just a bit too gigantic actually. What are these? No, just... I don't know. Just some random herb. To be honest, I don't think you can say anything special about that one. It's just normal. Oh, talking about normal, that's not normal. Oh boy. Okay. I think the moon has adopted the anthocyanins. I think the moon has had enough of the sun's UV radiation and has now turned red to protect itself. Oh boy. Alright, so we've reached this. I applaud your courage in coming here. The locations that will be revealed to you are of trials that will enhance the power sleeping within. Do not let your guard down. Okay. Don't worry, Steve. I won't let you down. I have a guard guarding my apartment. Where is that? Huh. I don't know. Where is that? I don't know. Let's look at the other ones. That light. Is it a reaction to someone nearby? Is it me? Or is it... No, bro. Fellow traveler, what brings you here? Cass, I already know you. Okay, fair enough. I'm wearing a helmet that doesn't show my face. And different clothes. So, okay. I suppose everyone has their own reasons for traveling. Look, I'm sure you already know, but it's one of the monuments mentioned in my teacher's unfinished song. Are you gonna play it again? Ah, sweet joy. How glorious to sing the song in the very land it describes. The song my teacher left behind. There's a verse about the trials that... Okay, champion left for us, I suppose. Allow me to sing it to you. Reaching skyward from waters blue, Brutus champion, a heart true. I'm too fast. The hero's power shall grow. Seek trials, monuments show. Is this cringe yet? One, find what the light's path shows. 2, conquer the ancient foes. 3, chase rings of the waterfall. Champion the trials call. That was fun. So, did it move you? I don't know, am I standing in the same place? I can feel it. My teacher surely sang this verse from this very spot. I wish nothing more than to carry on my teacher's dream to complete and perform this special song. To do so, I must learn all there is to know about the champions of old. Thankfully, the Zora King and Prince shared memories of their champion with me.
Oh.
To sing the completed song under the sky that my teacher so loved. That is the end goal of this long journey. That's nice. That's beautiful, Cass. Alright, okay, so what have we here? What is... Oh, wait, hang on. Is that in the... Hang on. Map. Whoops. Oh gosh, hang on. Okay. Is that... somewhere over here? No? Damn it. Yeah, I definitely think I remember them. Where are they? Huh. Oh, okay. Knuckle Island, Ankle Island, Davidi Island. Oh, Tingle Island. Oh, Tingle. Nice. Okay, so let's remove that pin. And so that is at the border of that. So somewhere here. Yeah, that should be about right. Alright, so where is that one? Ooh, that's interesting. What is that? Hang on. Is that Zora's Domain? Oh, that is Zora's Domain, right? Ah, okay. Waterfall, Zora's Domain. Entrance is down there, so let's see. Is that waterfall or that one? I think over here, that one, so it must be there. So let's take another pin from somewhere. Take it from Eventide Island? I think I'll remember Eventide Island. It's pretty popular. So let's place that somewhere there. Let's see again. Oh yeah, waterfall. Okay, I see, I getcha. Map. Okay, so yeah, that should actually be about right. Okay, sweet. And the last one. That is also Zora's Domain. I see that. Okay, that should be pretty easy from that. Okay, up here then. Right? Is that correct? Let's look at the rock formations. Okay. Can't really describe it that well, but... Oh, it's... Ah, yeah, it's definitely this one. Okay, sweet. Because you have, like, these kind of petal-like structures. That's where my mind is going. It doesn't really look like it, but that's how I remembered it. And then you have that rock on top of that rock, and that rock on top of that rock. It's definitely this one. Upland Zorana. Okay. Why have I marked the Bridge of Hylia? I'm not sure. Is it okay if I take that one? Maybe just because of the dragon that flies past? Did I mark it because of that? Might be. So let's place it there. Okay, it's just in the middle of that. Oh boy! Oh, okay. Yeah. Calamity Cannon's power is exerting through the moon.
Blood moon rises once again.
Alright, so that's gonna do it for this video, so thanks so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like and maybe subscribe as well, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! This codependence is represented very well in the game, and it especially makes a lot of sense in these areas that we discussed, where the lawyer of soil. Objection! Hold it.